Mimi xin kính chào quý vị khán giả của đài truyền hình VNTV và xin chào đón quý vị đến với chương trình Cuộc sống và sự nghiệp. Kính thưa quý vị, trước thềm năm mới, Mimi xin chúc cho quý vị sức khỏe dồi dào, gặp nhiều may mắn và làm ăn phát đạt. Và thưa quý vị, Mimi cũng đã hứa với quý vị là trong thời gian kế tiếp, Mimi sẽ đem đến cho quý vị những chương trình, những câu chuyện buồn vui trong cuộc sống mà quý vị có thể chia sẻ và cảm nhận được qua những câu chuyện mà Mimi gửi đến quý vị qua chương trình Cuộc sống và sự nghiệp. Và trong chương trình hôm nay, trong dịp đầu năm mới thì Mimi sẽ giới thiệu đến quý vị một khuôn mặt rất mới và khả ái đến quý vị. Nhưng tuy nói mới nhưng mà chị đã tham gia VNTV cũng một thời gian, và nếu mà nói trong lĩnh vực truyền thông thì chị là một khuôn mặt rất là quen thuộc trong các đài tin tức Hoa Kỳ. Và sau đây Mimi xin mời quý vị cùng VNTV gặp gỡ chị Jacqui Nguyen.
Chúc mừng năm mới Mimi và chúc mừng năm mới quý vị.
Dạ, cảm ơn chị Jacqui. Chị có thể giới thiệu cho quý vị biết về một chút về chị thưa chị?
Dạ, vâng. Nếu Mimi và quý vị không có mind thì cho Jacqui nói tiếng Mỹ nha. Tại Jacqui mình nói tiếng Mỹ nó giản hơn và nói tiếng Việt Nam. Thành ra my name is Jacqui, and I grew up here in San Diego, California. My family and I, we were part of the original boat people who came when we were in 1975, right after the fall of Saigon. We left. And basically, we grew up here in San Diego, California. I went to elementary school, junior high, and high school. And I also graduated from San Diego State University back in 1990. So that should tell you how old I am.
So I noticed nãy giờ em nghe chị nói có cái giọng, cái tiếng hơi người Bắc, thì if you don't mind me asking là chị người Nam hay là người Bắc, hay là chị where your family origin from?
Absolutely. Actually, gia đình của Jacqui là người Bắc, from Hà Nội. But then, giống như, gia đình migrate xuống to Saigon. So lúc mà Jacqui đẻ ra đó là Jacqui đẻ ở Sài Gòn, Việt Nam, 1972. Rồi đến sau khi đó thì Jacqui cũng có một đứa em trai đẻ. Sau đứa em trai đẻ là gia đình Jacqui phải đi chạy giặc. Tại Việt Nam bị mất nước rồi. And yes, I am from originally from Hanoi, but we lived in Saigon. So my accent actually goes back and forth. Certain words I can say in Tiếng Bắc and certain words in Tiếng Nam, and so it just depends on where I'm at. Sometimes it seems exactly. The more elder, the more of the elders that you're surrounded, it tends to be more Tiếng Bắc because of the fact that you want to impress them.
I noticed that you mentioned you came here when you were 3 years old. Nhưng mà chị nói tiếng Việt, it's pretty good for being here 3 years old. Do you speak Vietnamese at home?
Well, thank you very much. Cảm ơn Mimi. Like Mimi nói vậy. Ở nhà đó, lúc mà về nhà bố mẹ đó thì Jacqui nói tiếng Việt Nam. Tại hồi trước nhỏ thì bố mẹ nói là về nhà thì phải nói tiếng Việt Nam. Mà tại Jacqui cưới người Mỹ, thành ra nhiều khi nói tiếng Việt Nam nó hơi khó cho chồng của Jacqui, mà anh ấy thì ảnh cũng muốn biết tiếng Việt Nam, thì từ từ Jacqui cũng dạy anh ấy tiếng Việt Nam, mà nhiều khi cũng hơi khó tại Jacqui nghĩ tên in English and then sometimes I have to translate in Vietnamese, and so it's just like my mindset when I am working is always like in English, very fast, very quick, and that's how I've been trained since I was 3 years old, and going to school, and then of course my line of work that I was in.
Speaking of your line of work, I noticed, kính thưa quý vị, chị Jacqui là một người xướng ngôn viên của đài, chị đã từng làm cho đài Fox News, cho nên cái lần đó là lần đầu tiên Mimi gặp chị Jacqui. Thì chị cho em hỏi là how did you get into journalism, một người Việt như chị, tại vì trong các chương trình tin tức Hoa Kỳ thì em thấy rất là có ít là người Việt làm như vậy. Thì if you can share a little bit, how did you get into that career?
Absolutely. When I was in high school, I participated in my school journalism program, and I was one of the editors for the school newspapers.
Wow.
And so after I graduated from high school, I went to San Diego State University, and I was contemplating careers as an engineer, as a lawyer, as a doctor, as a nurse. Yes. And I didn't know which career path to go into. And my father actually, the summer right before I was supposed to start college, my dad sat me down. He says, well, what do you want to study? And I said, well, Dad, I really don't know. It wasn't obvious to me. And my dad said, well, why don't you become a reporter? Because you enjoy doing what you do. And I said, really? Because, you know, being a reporter is a job where not many Vietnamese American parents covet for their children. They want their children to be doctors, engineers, civil, electrical, mechanical engineers, prestigious jobs. And, you know, many Vietnamese Americans' parents, they perceive journalism as a job as like, you're kind of nosy. You know, you have to ask a lot of questions, you know. And so when my dad encouraged me to become a journalist, I was just like, wow, this is great. And so when I started college, I was actually already a second semester freshman because I took a lot of advanced placement courses in high school. And so I was second semester freshman, even though I started my first semester. And then I got a job at NBC 739.
Wow.
At the time, it was KNSD. It's still KNSD, but, you know, now they call themselves NBC 739. Right. And I was a desk assistant. So I started off there, and I would work the overnight shift. And it was really hard because the overnight shift on the weekends meant I had to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning, come in to write for their morning show. And
Would you think that's the most difficult part of being a news reporter? It's the timing, the scheduling?
Absolutely, absolutely. The getting up early in the morning, it's just part of the whole routine. But it was very difficult for me at the time when I was just in the early stages of being an adult and getting up in the morning, trying to juggle school.
You're willing to do whatever
I did.
needs to be done.
I did, but I also had a second job. I worked 2 jobs and I went to school full time. I put myself through college. I didn't want to go into debt, even though going to San Diego State doesn't mean that you're going to be in that much debt, but still, I didn't want to burden my parents by saying, hey, can you please help me pay? And so basically, I got scholarships. I worked 2 jobs. I worked a job Monday through Friday at KNSD, and then I worked weekends at the movie theater.
That's
it was kind of
awesome.
like considered like my fun job, you know, because I could go to see free movies, although I didn't have much time to go see free movies because I was so busy. But I started out there, and then after I graduated from college, I wanted to be a reporter. But it was just like, I had so many people tell me, this is what you had to do. You have to start out in a small market. And, you know, you always think like, you know what, I'm better than that. Realistically, you know, you had to get you know, you had to be, you know, put down to earth there where you're looking, you know, you have to look at things realistically.
Right. You know, when you talk about like having to juggle between jobs and having a new career, what do you think is the most challenging of like being the news reporter at that time?
The most challenging thing is basically time management, you know, because at that time it's just like I was dealing with putting together a story at a certain amount of time. And nowadays, you know, and even back then, it wasn't like you had one story you covered. You're basically, your news director could tell you, okay, Jacqui, here are the 2 big stories today. We want you to cover this story for the 5 o'clock newscast, and you're going to do a different story for the 6 o'clock newscast.
So you have to do one story in a certain time in order to...
Absolutely. And it's always time management. You know, it's always time management where you know that you had X amount of time to do one story.
How much time do they usually give you?
They don't usually give you that much time.
So let's say if you have to do like a reporting at 5 o'clock, how early do they will let you know?
Absolutely. You know, I'll give you a perfect example. When I was over at KGTV, I would come in at 10:30 in the morning, and at the time they had a 4 o'clock, 5, and 6 o'clock newscast. And they would tell me, okay, I come in at 10:30. I'm the last reporter to come in at 10:30. I get my assignment. By the time I'm briefed with my assignment, they'll be like, okay, Jacqui, it's 11 a.m. You have a live shot at 4 o'clock, and you're going to Fallbrook for that first story, and then you're going down to Chula Vista for the second story, and we want you live in between the 4 and 6 o'clock newscast. And you're like, okay, it's going to be a very challenging day, but we're going to do it.
Nhưng mà khi mà họ send chị đi như vậy, do they give you, họ cho chị cái câu chuyện trước, hay là chị phải từ, ví dụ mà họ nói chị là bây giờ chị phải đi Fallbrook thì chị phải chạy xe đến đó, chị phải tìm hiểu, hay là họ cho chị cái story and then you drive over there and you do the story?
They would give you the story.
Okay.
They would give you,
have an idea at least.
We have an idea of what the story is about, but you know what? It's a matter of like finding people to interview for the stories. That's up to you.
Right.
And so while you're driving up there to Fallbrook, you're thinking about like, you're talking to your photographer and you're saying like, okay, this is what I need for our story. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go in. We need elements A, B, C, D, and E, and this, we're going to get it done. We have 1 hour to do it because it takes longer to drive up there than to do the story. And you shoot the story, you get it done, and then you move on to the next story.
Wow.
But you know, the thing is, if you love what you do, it doesn't matter what the time frame is.
That's
it doesn't
true.
matter what the constraints are. It doesn't matter what pressure you're put under. It's what you enjoy doing.
Exactly.
And so that was a certain point in my life where I thoroughly enjoyed doing what I did. And then, after I got married last year, I decided, maybe I need to take a break. And I stepped away from journalism for a while.
Let's talk about, before taking a break, like what do you like most about being a journalist?
You get to know first about everything. That's the best part.
All the knowledge.
Yes, all the knowledge. I love getting information. I love sharing information. I love storytelling. One of the things that I do miss from not being a journalist anymore is the fact that I know the news right away. I love that adrenaline rush of going out there and getting that story, going live, breaking news. I enjoy doing that tremendously. And so there is a part of me that misses that aspect of the job.
But you still, now you're with VNTV, so you get a chance to meet more. Chị sẽ có cái cơ hội chị đi chị gặp khán giả Việt Nam nhiều hơn. So you still have this opportunity to show your talents. Khi mà em cảm thấy chị là nhưng chị rất là thành công về người Việt mà chị qua Mỹ rồi chị làm trong một cái chương trình như vậy, thì who has been your role model? Cái người nào mà đã giúp chị trong cái con đường mà chị cái sự nghiệp của chị? Who has been helping you?
That's a really good question. My role model, I had this one news director. His name is Jim Sanders. He's no longer a news director, but his last news directing gig was up in San Francisco, California. And granted, many people would expect for me to say like my role model is a female, but it's actually Jim Sanders. He had so much spunk, so much personality. He set me straight. When I told him my first job at NBC 739 back when I was in college, I told him I wanted to be a reporter. He basically looked at me and he said, "Kid, if you want to be a reporter, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You can't expect just to be a reporter like that." And I'm like, okay, sure,
For it.
Yeah, exactly. You're like, okay, sure. You smile and you're like, what do I need to do, But he's been one of the best role models I've had. I still keep in contact with him to this day. And we share a lot of aspects of life now as it is.
Right.
He knew me when I was this young girl, a budding journalist, to the day that he knew me, I became a professional.
Wow.
So he's seen the transition for me, and I'm very proud. I call him sometimes like my dad because I'm very proud to know that here's this man who gave me my start and who allowed me to help me to be where I'm at today.
Besides from Jim, em nghĩ là chị probably cũng giống như nhiều người Việt Nam á, thì mình có một cái người role model để mình lúc nào mình cũng phải look up để mình học hỏi. Besides những cái người đó thì em nghĩ là cha mẹ thì lúc nào cũng là cái người mà trong cuộc đời của mình để giúp cho mình trải qua những khó khăn, thương yêu để đùm bọc cho mình. Thì speaking of your parents, how are they? Are they very traditional? Chị ba mẹ chị ở nhà có khó khăn hay là làm sao, chị có thể chia sẻ một chút?
Of course, bố mẹ của Jacqui, người Việt Nam mình có cái lời là trả hiếu cho bố mẹ.
Dạ, đúng rồi.
Thành ra lúc nào, even though Jacqui cưới chồng Mỹ và Jacqui ở Mỹ, Jacqui lúc nào cũng nghĩ là cũng phải trả hiếu cho bố mẹ. Tại nếu không có bố mẹ mình thì ở đâu mình có ra đời.
Yeah.
Okay. Thành ra lúc nào nhiều khi Jacqui nghĩ đến mẹ, Jacqui my mom, if I may say this,
right.
She was a strict disciplinarian in our family. She was the one who basically said, you need to be this, you need to be this, you need to be this.
Right.
And she was very strict when I was growing up. However, if she wasn't strict with me, I don't think I would be the person that I am today.
Right.
So I have to say that I have to pay a lot of my respects to my parents. My mother was the one who taught me the right and wrong, who taught me about the tradition of being a Vietnamese woman, the tradition of being a wife, she taught me all these things, being the daughter, being the wife, being a mother. She set me up for these roles. And so I have to say, my parents are the people in my world that mean a lot to me. My husband and I, we go up and visit them once a week to see them.
Of all the things that you have learned from your parents, especially your mom, what do you think is the most important Vietnamese value would you instill in your child when you actually have kids?
That's a very good question there. My mom actually has always told me that she always say, con could be bà thống trong Hoa Kỳ hay là con là bà, president of some corporation, con phải nhớ con về nhà, chồng con là number one in your priority.
Wow.
Because she says it doesn't matter whether you're the president of Exxon Oil or the president of the United States and you're a female, the first person that when you come home to is your husband.
I think that's true because thì cái người chồng lúc nào cũng là quan trọng, because mình even though we go out, we in the work field, khi mà về nhà thì cái người chồng là cái người bên cạnh của mình, họ có thể support mình trong những cái lúc khó khăn, hay là they can share your successes. So I totally agree with you.
Absolutely, and I do that. I do feel that way with my husband. No matter what role I play out there now at this point in my life, in terms of career-wise, where I'm trying to pursue a career in politics, when I come home, my husband is my number one priority, and it's remembering that, because in order to have a harmonious marriage and a peaceful marriage and a successful marriage, you always remember that your husband is the number one priority. Absolutely. And then after that, then it's your children, if you have children, and then you worry about yourself. And of course, those are values as a Vietnamese American woman that I've been instilled those values by my mother.
Wow, that's awesome. One last question. So what are your plans for the future?
My plans for the future, well, last year I got married and I decided to pursue a career in politics. I felt like, I had my wonderful run as a broadcaster. Now I would like to pursue a career in public service where I'm helping out the community and paying my contribution back to the community and doing what I can for the community, especially for the Vietnamese American community, because we don't really have a voice and we need to have that strong voice. Right. And I like to have that strong voice. And of course, personally, my husband and we've talked about having a child. And so
hopefully that will be soon.
That is something that is on our agenda that we've been talking and going back and forth. And I will be honest with you, I've never considered myself as a maternal type. However, I have a young niece. Her name is Claire, and I love her to death. And every time I see her, she lights up my life. And I think about how wonderful it would be to be a mother.
Yeah. Thank you, Jacqui, for sharing your story, and I'm sure the VNTV audience will be looking forward to see you in the near future.
Absolutely, it was my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mimi xin cảm ơn sự theo dõi của quý vị và hy vọng quý vị đã có dịp gặp gỡ chị Jacqui và sẽ chào đón chị trong các chương trình sắp tới. Xin kính chào quý vị.